Welcome to another episode of Soul Sentred, the podcast with me, Janie Morris, and I'm delighted to have your company back once again. Before we get into today's episode, I do want to do a big shout out to all of you. We've been getting some great emails, texts, messages, and certainly lots of comments on all of our podcast episodes so far, and we're really grateful for all the feedback as well. So always remember, subscribe so you never miss an episode, like and share the episodes. If you hear something in the episodes that you feel that somebody in your world might be interested in listening to, well, share it over with them as well. So thank you again for that. Now in today's episode, we have a very special guest who, as you know, with Soul Centre, we're all about good health, well-being, fitness and longevity. And our guest today, we've invited him on the program because not only does he encompass all of those factors of Soul Centre, however, he's got so much more to add to the conversation in regards to resilience and leadership and what he has done with his life following his passion as a young teenager in the country areas of South Australia at Port Pirie, all the way through to leading the, for those of you who are in our global audience, we're talking AFL today, so Mark will talk to you about that as well and explain that, but leading AFL team, the Adelaide Crows, to great heights in their early days. And we're really excited to have Mark Bickley with us today. Hi, Mark, how are you?
I'm well, Janie. How are you?
Oh, look, I'm better for you being here today, I must say, and thank you so much. I know you're really busy, and we're really grateful. Mark, as I mentioned in the introduction, we do have a global audience. So for them, could you just give them a little bit of background on yourself and also maybe throw in a little bit about the AFL to explain?
For sure. Look, it's our Indigenous sport here in Australia, and it's I guess it's a combination of rugby and American gridiron, and there's kicking, there's catching, there's running, and it's quite a unique sport because it's a combination of power and stamina. The game goes for just over 2 hours, and it's played on the biggest field that you can imagine. It's about 200 metres long and about, I guess, I'm probably thinking 120 metres wide. So you need great, like I said, stamina and also great power to be able to play it, and great skill because there's a lot of kicking and catching, and the ball is an oval shape, so it doesn't sort of bounce truly like a basketball or a soccer ball would. So yeah, that's sort of, you may have seen it, like the Americans talk about how we play with no pads on. That's probably the thing that's memorable, and it's on some of those ESPN type channels at different stages as well. So it's been a great passion of mine ever since you mentioned I grew up in a little country town of about 15,000 people, a couple of hours north of Adelaide. And it's just always been a passion, and to be able to, get to the stage where you can play professionally and live your passion and get paid for it is great. But at the same time, everyone would love to do that. But, elite sport is such a cutthroat industry in terms of everyone wants to do it. So it's so sort of ultra competitive to be able to earn a spot in this, on a list, and then I guess get a game and play for a period of time.
Yeah, so let's go on to that, Mark. Back when you first did start, when you were a teenager and you knew that your passion was, I think if my memory serves me correctly and what I know about you, you actually left before you finished high school, and went and got a job to get some money to get involved. Back in those days, like as you mentioned, most elite sports now are highly paid. If you're really good, you're right at the top of the ladder and what have you. But back then, it wasn't the case. So it really was a step for anybody who wanted to get into any form of sport, but certainly with the AFL in Australia, they were passion driven, not money driven.
Yeah, that's right. I can remember, I think my first year of playing, I played 18 games, and I think I got paid less than $10,000. So, and this was, we were training, I think you're training 6 nights a week and travelling to play and a lot of those things, and working a full-time job. So, so when, you talk about doing weight sessions and you do training, all the weight sessions were done before work. So we would drive down to the footy club and get there at 6 a.m. and do an hour and a half there. And then you'd do a full day work, and then you would go to training after work. So you'd train from, say, 5:30 to 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night. So then, trying to fit a full-time job and a family and all those things in between. It just meant there was, a lot of people had to make a lot of sacrifices for you to get to where you wanted to go. So that's obviously important as well, that support. But to do that, it means you have to be really fanatical and driven and really want to be the best you can be and have that drive to succeed.
Now, can we talk about when the team was formed, the Adelaide Crows were formed in the AFL competition, and you were in the mix, so to speak,
Yep.
as far as that was concerned. You nearly didn't actually get into the team. Can you give us the story?
Yeah, look, Graham Corns was the inaugural coach, and he's become, a lifelong friend. And effectively, they invited 70 players out to train, and out of those 70, 42 were picked. And he basically said to me that the night before, he found some records just recently, actually, and he had to present to the board and present to them the 42 players who they'd selected. And he found this document, which was dated for the board meeting, and the 42 players were listed and my name wasn't on the list. So he said to me, I don't know how or I don't know why, but somehow I changed my mind on that night before the board meeting and I added you to the list. So, obviously someone missed out, but it's quite remarkable when you think about that. And what, that sort of speaks to is really about opportunity. And so, you can be the last bloke picked, but just someone having a belief in you and giving you an opportunity, then it's up to you then to make the most of it. So that's always been something I've sort of looked at in my life around, other people may get, have certain advantages about where they grew up or, whether it's socioeconomic advantages or the coaching or whatever it may be. But all you can ask for is an opportunity. And if you're ready and you're prepared and you've done all the work, then you give yourself an opportunity to walk through the door when that door opens.
To be the captain of a professional AFL team, it takes a lot of factors, obviously, not least of which is mindset. You were fortunate enough to captain the Crows in the premierships. What were your thoughts? What was your routine back then, or even if you've taken it all the way through your life now, as far as your mindset's concerned?
I think the biggest thing I learned from the captaincy and being sort of given the captaincy was around self-belief. Like when it was first announced, I had a bit of a crisis of confidence around, am I good enough? Am I the right person? Do I have the skill set? And I guess the conversations I'd had with some sort of trusted advisors, throughout that sort of early part of that is that the reason they've made you captain is because of all the skills that you've already displayed. It's not that they haven't made you the captain hoping that you're going to, all of a sudden change and become this person. They're actually doing it because you are that person. And I think it's a really good thing to actually understand. So if you're already doing a lot of that stuff, yes, you can get better, obviously, and you as you understand the role better, you'll grow into it. But primarily you've been appointed because they see a lot of the qualities that they're after. So once I sort of started to understand that and had that self-belief that I was, worthy of the role and I had the attributes and the qualities that could give me a really good, strong chance of having success. That was half the battle. And then it just gets down to, a lot of the personal qualities that you have around. For me, it's always been about sort of this continuous improvement. And one of the values that I hold quite dearly is this value of curiosity. If you are always curious about things and asking questions and looking for answers and how do I get better and all those types of questions, if you continually asking yourself that, you're always striving to find another way and find a better way. And so that's served me really well. And I think the other thing that I like about having, curiosity as a personal value is that it does speak to humility as well. When you're curious, what you're saying is, by asking questions of people, is you're saying, I don't have all the answers. And that speaks to humility where, I don't know it all, but I seek to want to be better. And so by asking questions and talking to people who may have had more experience than yourself, then you can sometimes enlighten yourself and become, that better person that you want to be.
Absolutely. Mark, you've achieved great success in your sporting career. And then when the time came to sort of transition, then in your particular instance, you actually went into media.
Yep.
Can you talk to us about how you were feeling when you were coming to the end and you had to make those decisions, and then why that and how that transition occurred?
Yeah, look, I guess towards the last 3 or 4 years of my career, it was always about making sure that I had choices at the end of the career. Like some players, I think, choose to play, one season too many or a little bit longer than what they should because they don't have anything to go to. Or, obviously right now the money is so good when you're playing right at the very top, it's hard to give that up. But for me, it was just making sure that at the end of my sporting career, there were different choices that I could make that weren't reliant on money, so to speak. So I've done a lot of media work and training in the last probably greater 5 or 6 years that I played. So I had an understanding of what that was about, and I built some really strong relationships with one of the media companies in particular, a television station. So I was sort of comfortable moving into that. There was a job waiting for me when I finished. So that was a fortunate position to be in. But you actually overnight go from being, the 250 game veteran and having a high standing and great experience in one field. The day you retire, that then gets erased, and then you become the junior guy with 1 day experience in the television station. So, all I tried to do was just use that same mentality that I used in football, which was around how do I get better, seeking feedback, training as hard as I can, asking lots of questions, and that mentality serves you, really well, no matter what profession you're moving into, and if you have that understanding that, you're going to make mistakes, that you're not going to be perfect, but every time you make a mistake, you're looking for a way of not making it again and how to get better, and like I say, asking people who have reached the top of their field and getting access to them and grabbing feedback. That's probably the most important thing I tried to do.
You have an excellent reputation of mentoring others, not only in sport but in business as well, because you've been enjoying a great retail career as well, alongside with your media. How important is planning? So if we look at sport, Mark, in particular AFL, the young players that we see these days, they're coming out there, they might have a bit of an ego going on and what have you. Number one, do you see that they are future planning after the game has ended? And if so, are they putting in the hard yards alongside what they're doing now?
Yeah, look, I think they're as well prepared now as what they've ever been. And I think a lot of credit goes to, there's a players association which is been set up by the players to look after the players. So that, along with all the television rights and all the money the game generates, there's an element that's taken away and that's preserved for just the players. So, for example, players that are playing get access to universities where they can study degrees during their time while they're playing. That's all paid for. The clubs are very good at providing mentors for the players and finding what their passion is, and then providing those people that are able to help them and teach them whilst they're playing, so that when they get to the end of their career, they feel like they're already a part way down the path to where the rest of their life is heading. So I think they're doing that as well as ever. So and of course the money's there. So having the ability to have something behind you that perhaps gives you some breathing space in the first couple of years to make that transition and not be worried about how am I going to pay the bills during that time, that is obviously a huge advantage as well.
And life-work balance in sport or actually in any part of life, really. You're known to have worked through that, had that as a major priority in your life, Mark. How have you managed to achieve that? Certainly now.
Well, I got 5 kids, so that's always challenging. Well, look, I try not to say life-work balance, because what that suggests is that it's 50-50.
Yeah.
And I know for many people out there, it can never be 50-50. There's very few people who have the privilege of being able to dedicate 50% of their life to all the things they would like to, because for whatever reason we're chasing or we're wanting to do stuff, and sometimes career is really important to us, so you have to put the hard yards in. So for me, it's about harmony, and this is where finding something that you're passionate about, that you make your career. Often, I know with my job, well, I'm working in a real estate firm now. I'm the general manager of the company, and one of the things I love doing is working with people and helping people get to where they want to get to. And so when I wake up on a Monday morning, I'm thinking about, can't wait to get to work today, and I'm meeting this person, and we're talking about, how we're going to take that next step, and we're going to be talking about the progress they've made, and talking about their performance, and so I'm passionate about that because I see that person has progressed from a junior to someone now who's integral in our organisation, and they're earning themselves, a lot of money, and they're doing really well in their life. So, they're the things that I'm passionate about. So work, whilst I put some time into it, there's many times at work where I get great satisfaction out of that. Now, if you have to go to a job and you're spending 50 hours a week and it's something you hate doing, that's bloody hard work. Whereas because I put lots of time into it, but there's so much of that I, like I say, draw satisfaction from. I don't always see it as work. And then whilst the time commitment might be strong, then it's just maximising the time away from it when you are with family and friends and doing your other passions that, they then fill your bucket up and give you energy that drives you then through the next week. So it's that finding that harmony, and I'm not perfect by any stretch. And it can be challenging, but that's what we're striving for.
In that role that you now have, Mark, the time back in the AFL when you were assistant coach for a while,
Yep.
and then there was I think it was half a season there that you actually had to step up.
Yep, interim
and
coach.
coach it. Yeah. So when you look at what you're doing now, do you look back at that and see the similarities in?
It's almost the same.
Yeah,
Exactly. What we start with is we work out. I talk about values a little bit because I'm a big believer in before you can master your domain or whatever you're doing, you actually have to master yourself. Who am I? What are my values? What do I want to stand for? What are the things that I do well? What's my strengths, and how do I deploy those strengths? So once we understand who you are, and that's what we talk about. It's then we talk about what next. So what do you want to do? And that's what footy is about. You talk to the players when you're coaching them about what are your strengths, how do you deploy those strengths, how do you maximise them, and then from that where do we want to get to? Is it 100 games? Is it best and fairest? And once they decide what they want to do, then it is, well, how are we going to get there? And then we create a plan. Yeah. And so if you want to be a midfielder in the AFL, you have to be running a 2K time trial in 6.5 minutes. And so then if you're not doing that, go talk to the fitness coach and get a program that says that. The other thing you need to do is your kicking efficiency needs to be above X amount. Yours at the moment is below that. So who's going to help you get to that sort of level of proficiency with your kicking that's going to take you to the next level? So there's all those elements that you break down. And whilst, I'm in real estate, it's the same thing. What commission do you want to write this year? Okay, so how many houses does that mean you have to sell? So to get a listing, how many people do you have to speak to? And just keep breaking it down. Yeah. And it ends up, just being sort of more based on process and following that process, and then the results end up looking after themselves.
Mark, let's talk about fitness. Obviously, that's where you started your career in the sporting industry. Full transparency, audience. I used to be a neighbour of Mark's back when he was playing, and so very early in the morning or late at the end of the day, you would sort of on the same time of every day, you would know if you went out on your balcony, you could see Mark Bickley going for his run. And my mum used to take great delight in that because she liked to think she was the number one ticket holder for the Crows, and I do recall a couple of times where she did stop Mark and ask him why plays were done on the weekend that she didn't think was right.
Got plenty of advice.
She did, but you're fit. You've always been fit. You've always been focused on that, and it's a major. It would be a value of yours as well. How do you maintain that now, and how do you bring that into what your life as a whole?
Yeah, it's interesting because running used to be such a big part of what we did. Like obviously in a sport where you run, when I played, it was probably 14 to 18 kilometres a game, over 2 hours, and there's physical contact in there as well. So it was very tough. So a lot of the pre-season was about building that sort of stamina base. What happens when you retire? I joined a running club after I retired actually, and I really enjoyed running and got into it because when you finish playing, you drop a little bit of weight because you're not doing all the heavy lifting of weights and you start to feel good and you're light and you're running beautifully. But then I just started to get some wear and tear. Like I had a stress fracture in my foot, and then you get sore knees. And so that I just started to think then about sustainability. As much as I loved running, am I going to be able to keep running without doing sort of serious damage to my body? So I probably started to research, well, what is this sustainable practice that I am going to follow so that I can be sort of fit and healthy? I'm in my mid-50s now. Like, this is 20 years ago I'm thinking about this. So it all came back to, getting in the gym and lifting weights effectively. So, building muscle base, which gives you bone density, those types of things that are there's just this proven history of if you can maintain that consistently as you age, it's so beneficial to your body. Now, because I love running, I still run once a week with a couple of mates. We get up early on a Friday morning and run, I don't know, probably 8Ks and talk rubbish and it's more about a connection piece than anything. We don't break any world speed records, but it's a regular ritual where we catch up and we meet and we talk, and that connection is really important. And then sometimes, as I've sort of aged and we talk about this sort of quality time that you want to spend with each other, walking, with my wife and the kids. Often, if there's something on at the beach, we'll walk to the beach, which is a couple of kilometres away, rather than jump in the car and drive. So it's just finding ways to stay active, and that's been something that I've, I want to be active, for the next 20 or 30 years. So you just, the whole use it or lose it mentality really is something that I've tried to do. So it's probably, I reckon, 3 to 4 times a week I'm doing some type of workout, whether that's in the gym or running or walking or some type of other activity. I do a bit of coaching of kids' sport, so I try and, when we do the warm-up for 20 minutes, I'm trying to join in and have a bit of fun with them as well. So, that ability to enjoy that pastime and make it something that you look forward to, and also make time for it. I know when I get really busy at work, I still make time to do that, because I find that it's healthy, mentally for me as well, to put something back into myself rather than sort of giving all the time.
Yeah. Mark, you said about you do a little bit of coaching, kids coaching and what have you. How hard is it to hold yourself back on the coaching side? Or are you one of those coaching parents? Or?
No, it's easy for me. I'm just a true believer in kids sport. Now I'm sort of coaching for the school team. We've got a private school that I coach, and it's so it's effectively about under 17s or 18. So there's sort of young men, and there's a lot of testosterone, but our mentality is always about playing with a smile on your face, and it can get, young boys want to be aggressive at times, but what we look for is, the beauty about playing for your school and as opposed to playing for a club is, at your school they're actually all your mates, and so it's the opportunity to play with your mates, to try and at the start of the year set out a few things that we want to achieve, and then sort of get to work and try and do that. And so, like I said, we try and play with a smile on our face. We're trying to work on things and get better. So there's this level of satisfaction. If we have a couple of wins, we sing the song together and we have a great deal of fun. And also there's always different levels. There's a couple of guys at the very pointy end of our team who are going down the elite path. And so we're trying to help them and do everything we can to give them the instruction and the coaching that they need to get better. But then, the majority of the team are really doing it for the connection and the social aspect, and just trying to be the best version of themselves. So we still give them that same opportunity to improve and get better. But, we're really about, creating some memories that they'll look back on in 5, 10, 20 years' time and say that was a great time in my life when we were playing footy with our mates.
Communication obviously has come through in everything we've been talking about so far, Mark, in everything that you've done. With your own kids, communication obviously would be a big part of all of that. What advice do you give? Like, you've got 3 gorgeous daughters and they're all a lot older, and then you've got your 2 gorgeous boys. Big range of ages as far as communication. How do you deal with all of that?
Yeah, it's I'm not sure I'm the oracle on this, but I think we just try our best. It's just trying to find ways to to stay in touch. All my daughters are no longer at home. They're in their mid-20s, so 24, 26 and 28. So it's just making appointments in your week to call, to catch up and to, spend time together. That's the most important thing. So much easier, my boys are at home still and, the youngest is 13, so he's still pretty reliant. He's not quite independent yet. So, we spend a lot more time with them and they're, because you have to sort of be the taxi as well, you tend to be fairly invested in them. But it's just about enjoying those moments together and as your kids get older, you don't see them as much, but you feel like the connection is that stronger because, as they're young adults, obviously there's an enormous amount of pride that you have in how they've turned out and where they are. And there's also this trust as well that, you understand I can't control them anymore. And I hope that, you've been able to impart, a certain set of sort of values on them that you trust that, they're going to be safe and they're going to make really good decisions. So not to say they don't make mistakes and they haven't made blues. I think everyone has done that in their life, but, try and get out of the way and make sure that you're there if they want you and advice, but you're not sort of there preaching to them.
Yeah. Is there anything so far in your life, Mark, that you haven't done that you wish you had have or that you would have liked to have done?
Look, probably like when you play footy, our season, sort of the pre-season starts in November and, if you play right through to the end of the year, you finish in September. So you've literally got about 6 or 8 weeks at the end of every year where if you wanted to travel or to do something, you have to really do it in that time of the year. And it's not really long enough, is it? 6 weeks?
No.
And so when, you start playing at 16 or 17 and I think I finished playing at 34, I just felt like there's just that massive chunk of your life where, so many of your mates that didn't end up playing elite sports, they might have gone and worked overseas or, chucked a backpack on and just bummed around for a year or so. I know my wife spent, a bit of a gap year when she was 18 and moved over to England, which, she talks about and refers back to a lot. So, probably like, one of the things I have is I still have this belief that that there's still so much to do and there's so much still to come. So I'd like to maybe immerse myself in another culture for, I don't know what the number is, 6 months, 12 months or something at some stage, so whether, move overseas and just do something, take a gap year and go do something that was different or that's sort of outside of, the norm of what your life has become, just to try and experience something.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm hoping to do that one day before I leave this mortal coil, and I think I've got about 20 years left in me, Mark, so we'll keep in touch on that one. Yeah. Mark, for any of our audience that are listening right now and have been really inspired by all of your story that we've been sharing on touching and on the touch points, in particular on resilience and fitness and mindset, but they're feeling a little bit stuck in life at the moment. If you got any of your advice, what would you say if somebody was standing in front of you or one of your players or one of your teammates at the agency?
Yeah, look, I guess that we all are striving and sometimes feel like we might not be getting to where we want to get to, or, one of the things we often fall into this comparison, this race with a best mate, an enemy or whoever, and it's like, why do they seem to have it all under control and they're getting to where they want to get to? And I think that's that can be unhealthy when we start to compare, because often, like comparing is there's never comparing apples to apples. Everyone's journey is different, everyone's story is different because everyone's had a different upbringing, they've had different opportunities. So, it's all about perspective and trying to keep that perspective of this is my journey and it's totally unique. And so just trying to understand that whilst you might not be getting to where you want to get to at the pace you want to get there, if you can focus on actually continuing to move forward and to continue to move towards where you want to be. You might not be there today, but as long as you're a better version of yourself tomorrow, you're getting closer to where you want to get to. So it's really, I guess, broadening that sort of horizon and just, even going back and comparing, where was I 12 months ago? And I think you'll be surprised often of how much, you've actually achieved in that 12 months. And so that reflection piece is important. And then you think, okay, where do I want to be in the next 12 months? And then just even moving slowly towards it, I think is the secret of my career. And I always often refer to it like a set of steps. Like, I've been good at just setting short-term goals which is like a step on a giant stairway. And if you can continue to meet those short-term goals, when you get to the top of the stairway, you're not surprised that you're there, but you look back and you think, wow, there's a lot of steps that have had to have overcome to get here. So just keep focusing on that step in front of you and just keep sort of moving step by step, and eventually you'll get to where you want to get to.
That's great advice. Thank you so much, Mark. And Mark, thank you so much for joining us today on Soul Sentre,
my pleasure.
the podcast. It's been great. You are one of the most humble and genuine and inspiring guys, certainly always when in your sporting career, but onwards, through the media and all the work that you do. So grateful to have you here today. And before I let you go, what's next for Mark Bickley? What's on the horizon?
I honestly don't know. I've started working at McGain Real Estate, where I'm the general manager, and I'm really enjoying. It's really about creating an environment where people can flourish. So I'm really invested in that at the moment. As you mentioned, my boys are 13 and about to turn 16, so they're about to sort of enter a pretty critical phase of their adolescence. So making sure there is that sort of harmony there to be able to to be present for them and enjoy that period of their life, because I've read somewhere the other day that by the time they turn 18, you've spent 90% of the time you're going to spend with your children. And so, this is, I'm on the sort of the final stretch really, in terms of living under the same roof and doing all those things. So, just making sure that I'm present and enjoying that period of my life.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mark. We really appreciate you, and we look forward to we'll have you back again, and
of course,
because everything that you say, everything that you've shared with us today has been absolutely fabulous. And thanks so much for your time, Mark Bickley.
Thanks, Janie.
And thank you for joining us again for Soul Sentre, the podcast. And you know what to do wherever you're listening to us right now. You might be at work, or you might be out for a run, just like Mark does, or you might be at the gym, or wherever you are listening to us on wherever you get your favourite podcasts. Thank you for joining us. And remember to hit that subscribe. And we look forward to having you next time when we have another fabulous episode of Soul Sentre, the podcast.